we talked about the 11.1 happening last week. Now we can dive a little bit deeper on it.
All right.
Because basically, like when this was first announced, I'm going to reiterate what I said last week. There was this, during the presentation celebrating 30 years of Warcraft and look ahead at what's next. I told you what's next is a very key phrase here because that's what they always used on BlizzCon and on the panels and all of that. And also there was that tweet from Holly Longdale, which was basically saying that, hey guys, there's a lot of stuff we got to see and stuff. So apart from what we know, there's going to be the concert that you went to. There's going to be a lot of celebratory things or whatever. This is basically the replacement of BlizzCon. When they announced
for
stuff.
Warcraft.
Yeah. So if you would put this back in time, and we did this last week, gonna do this exercise again. When they did BlizzCon in 2018, BFA was already out. They couldn't possibly announce a next expansion. We were just in BFA. That was in November. What did they announce? They announced 8.1. All right. So this is the time where we will see what 11.1 will be about.
I don't think anybody doubts the fact that we're going to have 11.1 news.
They will not doubt. So you would imagine, because a lot of people speculated that, man, this is going to be too early, man. They're going to announce 11.0.7. No. See, this is the thing. I'm happy this has happened.
You have to have like a broader perspective over the course of the content, considering that we knew about the War Within for almost a year now, and we've been in the War Within content, not everybody, but kind of everybody for like 5 to 6 months now, ever since beta was open. We were making videos at the very least, and every content creator was almost already in, so people knew. People who are engaging online with this stuff, they already knew about War Within before it launched, so it's not like the expansion is really fresh, like, oh my god, I just logged in the other day in the expansion for the first time. No, you knew about it, so it's not too early to showcase it. What I am curious about is how big is 11.1 as a patch, because it is at Warcraft Direct, it is at 20 years of WoW, 30 years of Warcraft.
You say that, but this will probably launch somewhere in March.
Yeah, no, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the announcements. They have to make it big. They have to make it sure it's a 0.1 patch, but it has to be a big. It has to be a big patch.
When I first started looking at what was data mine regarding this and what was speculating on it, and this is not new news, but we did have a couple of things, right? So in the 11.0.5 dialogues and stay a while quests or whatever, when you finish a quest, you have that stay a while option to listen to some dialogue. So we had Skagit here talking about, finding a new island with a crystal over there.
That has to be Sirens.
Now we know it's Sirens, but people speculate, oh my god, we're going into the Undermine for the Goblins, going to be that raid, we're going to fight Galwick. So the speculation was 11.1 is going to be another underground place. And I was a little bit deflated because, as much as I love the War Within zones, it felt too much like Dragonfly. Like, we had Zaralak Caverns as 10.1. We're going to go into the Undermine, another underground place, and I don't find it really appealing to find goblins.
If they did that, yes. I feel like what we have right now in the War Within is perfect in terms of like underground zones. The way
totally different, yes, totally different, because there's light.
I do hope they're not doing yet an underground race with yet another mole people. Oh.
No. But the thing is, like, everybody was speculating prior to us knowing about 11.0.7. Everybody was speculating because of these dialogues, because there was Skagit, there was like the Earthen were talking about this, the Arathi, only to find out that everything on this was about 11.0.7, which...
Kind of like the Plunderstorm logo, the Plunderstorm little pirate flag.
Yeah.
How wild were those speculations?
That was pretty wild, but... Now that we know it's not the case, so we're not necessarily going into the Undermine of fighting goblins or, last boss Galawix or whatever. I mean, I would love to fight Galawix as a last boss, don't get me wrong, but when I first seen this, and I also believe, like, based on these little dialogues, I was like, oh my god, we're actually going in something goblin-y like. It didn't really feel connected to what the hell was happening in War Within, kind of.
Not in 11.1, no. Maybe 11.07 alternate universe.
Yeah, but that does leave now a lot of room of questioning. Like, what is 11.1 going to be about?
What is the story?
Where are we going and what is going to happen? Now, I have some hopes, okay? So just looking past what happened in the War Within and the stories or whatever, I noted down here, my obvious hope would definitely be either the origin place of the Arathi from Hollowfall, because we know that their empire is not on any maps currently known to us. And Hollowfall is just like the place they settled in, okay? So it's not their home, all right?
It's part of their empire, the ones that we have in Hollowfall, right? It's not their whole empire there.
It's nothing, no, they just settled there.
Yeah.
They just settled there, it's nothing like that. So there's that. Plus, I don't know if you remember that quest with the peculiar fish.
Yeah, of course I remember.
Okay, so that's still in Hollowfall, right? So if you remember, that fish descended into the Black Sea. And okay, I have some pictures here.
I know exactly what you're gonna show. I remember vividly.
I think this is very speculative, and it's my hopes. Okay, so it's either like going into the actual empire of the Arathi, or something close to that, and actually traversing this sea or going into the actual sea, because he mentions about a sea that's under the sea, where if you want to go in, make sure to bring a light. And that was very voidy. That was basically, all the things void 100%.
I mean, even how the fish transforms. I thought that's what you're gonna show. How the fish transforms into the big.
Maybe some people didn't do it, and
Yeah, that's also. By the way, that's a big. I really recommend. I'm not gonna say anything if you haven't done this quest. Do yourself a favor. After you're done watching our stream, go do the peculiar fish quest line in Hellfall. You'll see it. You can hit it anyway, because the end of it is so gnarly. And if they go there, there's a lot of potential content that they can explore, and it would finally tie into something. Like the problem that I have with these patches, and the problem that I had with 10.1, is that they take us into these zones with the Nifim. It so disconnects me from the immersiveness of WoW when you introduce me to like this totally broken zone that has no connection to the actual expansion, to these people that make no sense because you thought of them like last minute, and you're trying to figure out a way to explain their existence in the world because they weren't there before. Like whenever they do stuff like this, it just suspends my disbelief on their world building when it comes to telling the story of the War Within. So I hope they don't do that, and I hope they definitely tie it to the Arathi, because if you really think about it, the Nerubian story has kind of completed, right? The Earthen story has completed before the Nerubian started. So the only loose end in actually exploring the richness of the story that they've actually created is with the Arathi people, is with Beladar or Belredar or whatever, is with what happens with Anduin, what happens with I forgot her name.
Farron is her name.
Farron Lothar.
That, and also we don't really have any closure with Xal'atath. Now, where could she possibly go outside of a new zone that is actually void inspired? And this is why I feel like when the fish says that, okay, there's a sea under the sea where you have to bring your light in order to go in, that it's obviously about the darkness, the void. And it would make sense for Xal'atath to be somewhere around there, because we haven't finished with her. Obviously, we're going to keep on seeing her probably up until midnight. And it's close to Hollowfall. And as Flame mentioned, it will definitely tie in a couple of like loose ends regarding Anduin, Farron, and everything that's happening. Plus, I feel like there was such a cool feedback from people regarding Hollowfall as a zone, and everybody that was in there, the characters, the population, everything like that. I feel it's like it would be such a big win for 11.1 to take us there. I don't know what raid that would entitle, but it would be, at least for me, it would be my biggest copium for 11.1.
There's also something that actually Lewis is saying right now in chat that's very interesting that we actually haven't touched about, is the Haranir trolls and the whole root system.
Yeah, there's also that.
So please expand on these new races instead of giving us another new stuff, another new faction.
I mean, there's also, okay, so if you're gonna go there, it's interesting because those trolls were actually featured in the cinematic of War Within.
The story's like...
And I was so excited. Remember, I was so excited, going in, and it ended up so abruptly. It's like, wait a minute. I want more. I'm interested. What is this?
I mean, this whole thing revolves around Xal'atath's plan, which obviously we don't know what it is, because I'm really thinking hard, because I've done all the quests, all the stories, and I've listened to all the dialogues. I'm really thinking hard and not really realizing what was Xal'atath's plan for the Nerubians.
Why did she use them? I think they just use them. I think her plans were a little bit shattered because they didn't really deliver for their purpose.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure it was something like behind the scenes she used them as a distraction to do something. We don't know what that something is.
Hate that. No, I would go for the story where her initial plan failed and she retreated. Because if we're gonna go once again and in the grand scheme of things, this was just a setback. I have bigger plans already. No, I hate that when they did that with the jailer.
But that's no. What you're saying is the actual setback. If her whole plan was to, the way Iridikron kind of led us around to get the Dark Heart, and she had a purpose, except because if her purpose was just to stall us, buy time, that's a very poor plan, considering that we as a nation.
She failed. Her plan A failed. So when we got rid of Queen Azurek, she basically not admitted, but kind of like dismissed her like it meant nothing.
Fair. If it's
right.
If that's what it is, that's fine. But then she really starts to lose a lot of her authority as a villain. If she failed that easily, I mean, it kind of
going into a separate discussion here. But in regards to the Harner trolls and the roots all over there, like if you look up in that zone, you can clearly see, or at least speculate, there's some tree above us. Those are like big ass roots coming down.
Sure.
There's people talking about a different world tree over there, so that could possibly
where would that
also
tree be? Because
where will it lead off? Exactly. And where is the other part of the crystal going out?
That's what's interesting. That's what they can explore because it's
11.1.
It's a mystery. It's a mystery where that could lead. It could lead. And if you want to create new worlds within the worlds, and that would be the Harner trolls, then you plant the seeds for it, right? Figuratively and literally in this case, where you can actually what happened with the trolls? They were talking about all of this stuff, all of this. Their world is thought out. They're druids of the roost. They're not supposed to be seen in their trollish form. They're supposed to be always in their shape-shifting form. Maybe this can expand a different version of druidism outside of the Cenarian circle and outside of what the Night Elves and the Torrents have. That could be a lot of potential content. We're again speculating and we're kind of like grasping at straws here, but hopefully they go into this route when it comes to future patches of WoW and not just we just need a new zone. We need a new faction. Just give them all people. They're underground. That's gonna make sense, right?
Yeah. But all these sound way better than actually going into an undermine type zone with goblins
for sure.
and stuff.
That can also be cool because if they
here we go.
No, not as an 11.1 patch, motherfucker. It's for actual content. Remember Motherlode? That was a really cool dungeon, and that's what you get if you take goblins, make a city or make a living world out of them, and put cool stuff. It's cool ass robots, goofy bombs blowing a lot. That can be 11.1.5 or whatever. Not as a whole zone, not as a patch, but as
even
content.
as a zone, it would be interesting. But if you're gonna base like a big ass patch 11.1 just purely on that, for me it feels disconnected because I didn't really interact that much with goblins apart from a couple of like minor quests. We're definitely going to interact a lot more on the 11.8.7 patch, but
again build towards it. Not a whole patch for sure, but build towards it where every race has such a rich background. Just give us more of the stuff. Give us more goblin stuff. Give us more earthen stuff. Give us more Arathi stuff. Give us stuff that already exists in the world. Build on it and make us care about the world more instead of just constantly adding more new things.
But we're talking about 11.1 speculation here on where we're going and what the story is. What do you think the raid will be, man? What do you think?
That's why I'm saying that it all revolves around Xel'Tat's plan because it feels like it's over. I feel like we've stopped her, right?
It's not over.
Obviously, it's not over.
I mean, you saw her feet, man. It's definitely not over.
But I'm saying, like, if it's like you're saying that she failed, then we won.
I think she's gonna be absent for a while. I think 11.1 will not have her necessarily. And if they do go to an origin of the Arathi Empire, from what I may be mistaken here, but from what I understood, the Emperor is kind of like a nasty dude, kind of like a fanatical type. So there might be some seeds over there. I would like, if there was to be taken a sidestep from the actual Xel'Tat situation and actually deal with the Arathis and probably
that would be a cool
transform the Arathis into our biggest allies, and then the 0.2 patch will actually be us, going, we got rid of the Emperor, that's gonna be the raid, all right? And we're going with these new Arathi people and fighting whatever we need to fight in 0.2, whatever that may be.
You know what 11.1 can be about? Building up on what you're saying about the Arathi, it could be Anduin's culmination story.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you have to put Anduin there.
Anduin is
finally a red paladin. Anduin, bitches.
Anduin is on his hero journey, and he's now stepping in. It's like, I'm finally finding out the way to actually become the new me. Obviously, that happened with Khadgar, but he has to have like this final obstacle to finally embrace his past, embrace himself as a person, and lead the alliance or whatever he's going to be leading on to the future, hopefully into Midnight, right? So he's going to need a foil. We need an enemy.
Or a tin foil.
Or it could be this evil emperor or whatever, because obviously the Arathi are very in tune with the light, so it can be like, you can have bad light and good light, and Anduin is going to spearhead the good version of the light forward, defeat this emperor, unite the Arathi with the humans and whatever, and then we actually have a foothold going into the story, into whatever Xel'Tat's cooking up, or Beard the Crown. Plus, because you mentioned they said that familiar face. Maybe that's the new enemy. Maybe that's the new.
Yeah. Well, if they do that, then definitely we'll need another rework for Red Paladins because. obviously.
You want that rework, man. You want a reason to play it,
I mean,
man.
Alduin is gonna be a red paladin, like, assumed, like, responsible. Okay, now I declare my allegiance to the red paladin
I've
brotherhood.
pressed change specialization.
And then that's what happens when you love red paladin so much, and you have to have like. I didn't really feel Anduin, the priest version. I definitely feel a lot more this warrior-y type.
Well, obviously, since BFA, he's been fighting as a warrior in combat and just kind of like tapping the light here and there, kind of like a priest, but obviously that would just mean he's a paladin. I didn't really feel the paladin-y vibe from him, the way that...
Not yet, but
not yet. Not how Turalian brings the paladin to life, not even how... not Turalian, sorry, Tyrion, but not even how Turalian brings the paladin to the battlefield, right? I feel like Anduin is still kind of learning, still like a priest that just went to the gym and is able to
He found the sword.
Yeah, he found... That's exactly how
what
it
do you
feels.
do with this?
Look at the combat scenes, look at his dialogues, the way he's engaging with Saurfang back in BFA, and the way he was fighting in Shadowlands, and the way he kind of is now. He's just fighting like a warrior. When you do the little quest lines, when the Nerubians break through the wall and he's down there and you leave him behind, right? He just feels like a warrior. It doesn't feel like... So it's there. The journey is coming to its fruition and he's becoming an actual fucking red paladin.
Hopefully, people are saying he's going to become a holy paladin. I doubt it is going to become a holy paladin. But okay, so we can speculate on what the raid will be. I'm hoping it's going to be 10 bosses. What do you think? So let's play this game, all right? So we're going into the original Arathian Empire, right?
That is the last raid. It's going to be their emperor as the last boss. It's going to be a raid full of paladins.
All right. Now, in theme of that, what do you think the Mythic Plus dungeon pool will be?
Well, Priory of the Sacred Flame, friend, because that's the dungeon that hasn't made it into...
That's so obvious. Some others, please.
But the others... How about Scarlet Monastery?
That's what I was going with.
Yeah, boy, that's what I'm talking about.
Because like we did have this like celebratory situation happen with the tuning and all of that.
Time walking of the dead mines and all of that.
Yep. And listen, man, I don't know about you guys. I know it's gonna be a shit show. I know it's gonna be bad. But I so want those classic vanilla dungeons in Mythic Plus, man. Just for the fuck of it. Just for bashing our heads and dying in frustration of all the bugs and the tuning. It's not even that vanilla
anymore, because it's Cataclysm, right? Cataclysm revamped.
Even still, yeah, sure. But if they're gonna go with the origins of the Arathi stuff and the raid was gonna be with the Emperor and all that.
Basically a more fanatical version of the light.
Yes, you bring those fanatics back. That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
So it's gonna make sense. Now, obviously, this Priory of the Sacred Flame is a no-brainer if that's gonna happen. And if you think about it, it makes sense. They have to bring it. When they're gonna bring it? They're not gonna bring it in 10-2.
Of course. 11-2. Yeah, obviously they're gonna rotate. And if you look at it, it really makes sense. They really chose these dungeons deliberately. Grim Battle, for instance, it's a dungeon.
They always link some shit with those old dungeons, right?
Void infused dwarves and void infused dragons. Right now we're going to the Priory of Sacred Flame with like fanatical paladins embracing the light to forcibly resurrect.
We don't know yet. We might go.
Well, they're already there in the Priory of Sacred Flame. We don't know if that's going to be the raid, but it would make sense to build up, because you remember they did this in Legion as well. Whenever we had the Triumvirate dungeon from Argus, and then we had the actual Argus raid, right? So they tied these in. So obviously it could be Scarlet Monastery. What else could we have? Maybe, because you know what else that just popped into my head? The other familiar face that might tie into everything that we talked about. Someone that you're expecting.
I don't know.
Irel.
Oh my god! If they were,
boy.
How would they bring that in?
I mean, if they want to make the fanatical paladin, if they want to give them like the proper due, you have to kind of put her in. I mean, we have already had the orc heritage that, when we already had the Magar orc heritage, they're including the Magar into the actual culture of Warcraft. So you have to embrace alternate timeline Draenor if you're gonna embrace that culture. So you have to admit that she still exists there. What is she doing there?
That would be very, very interesting. I would be a happy camper, but it has to make really solid sense and
hopefully
it'd be all tied in and everything. I don't. Maybe it would be too early. Who knows? Maybe that could be like a conclusion to 11.1 or whatever. But fine, I'll take it. If it's gonna be Irel,
whatever they do.
How familiar is Irel though? That's what I'm saying. Because if you think about it, how many people do you think actually play through Warlords of Draenor? I know a lot of BFA babies here.
But if you're gonna make that point, what other familiarity will you add that people can recognize that would tie into the War Within? You think they're gonna dig up Shadowlands? Nah,
I don't know, man. I don't know, man. It would have to be. It would be a culture shock if they bring Sylvanas back. in this capacity, it would be a culture shock. I'm telling you.
So I'm thinking, because there's a lot of underlying themes in the War Within that have been addressed. Well, once again, going back to the Priory of the Sacred Flame, when you do the quest, you know that just before the last boss, there's this undead paladin. It's the brother of the dude that is the second boss of the dungeon that gets resurrected into, servitude, right? It's essentially an undead brought to life. We don't know if it's a paladin, it's as close to a paladin as an undead can be, but we also have Kalia Menethil, who has been resurrected by the light. That's another familiar face that, they could essentially bring in. So there's stuff that they could do. Now, I don't know what they're gonna end up doing, but there's plenty of material of bad holy light, bad paladins, undead paladins being resurrected, fanatical paladins, there's all of these things that have to be part of the 11.1.
All right. Well, in that case, what do you think 11.1 would bring as a fresh new thing in terms of I don't know,
maybe a gimmick,
maybe the ring will be the continuation for that ring, maybe something in those lines. Maybe they'll bring out some really in-depth tier set bonuses, or maybe 11.1 would bring a totally different thing. I don't know, some sort of extra topping on top of everything we do.
That's so what
Delves plus.
Well, since we're playing off the back of the borrow power of 11.0.7, and obviously we're going to have something specific for 11.1 to be interesting to, bring in the theme of the patch into the player's progression. And if it's going to be light themed, I'm thinking maybe a new style of enchants themed towards the light. Because if you think about the light buffs players, that's kind of its main thing. Sure, you can heal, sure, you can use it to deal damage, but the thing that is kind of present in all of the cinematics, all the lore, is that light makes you stronger somehow. So you can translate that into enchants, into a different way of improving the items and not actually replace items with legendary rings or other stuff.
Forged?
That
would be the name.
That is the one.
What would be the name of it?
Light chanted.
Fuck.
That sounds so terrible.
Light chanted. It just rolls off your tongue, doesn't it? Now, I was thinking about something. Did they add anything extra in 10.1? I don't think so. They brought in augmentation.
That was a little bit early.
So that's the thing. When they put a major new patch after the release,
the gearing system was introduced. The new gearing system.
Yeah. So it has to be something. I would be very surprised if they don't either address some major pain point
that we talked about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. Or they introduce something that would solve a major pain point, or just bring on quality of life improvements on anything. Now, yes, 10.1 did bring in the new gearing system with the currencies and all that. There was also augmentation on that list. So they brought a lot. They obviously didn't have anything new to add on top of game mechanics or borrowed power in a sense or anything like that. I doubt they would bring in a new spec because I don't see it happening nowhere. So those resources that would in the past were attributed to this thing, like the gearing system and the augmentation spec, now these resources would focus on something either new or fixing whatever the fuck is happening right now.
That is exactly what's going to happen, because if you're going to be at least moderately charitable towards Blizzard, you know that even if they fumbled, they've been very receptive to player feedback. When people were complaining about mages being overpowered, they nerfed probably a little bit too much. The same thing happened with elemental shamans. They over-nerfed elementals. The elementals in the shitter right now.
Something is very wrong.
So it doesn't always work out, but they at least know. So you bet your butt they know about our gripe with Mythic Plus. They've been knowing that since beta, but probably didn't have time to work on it.
Listen, if there's not gonna be anything new coming in 11.1, I would be more than happy if they just ironed out and fixed the hell out of all of the pain points we have currently in the game, both in rating and in patches and in balancing and in Mythic Plus. Now, there's another reality to this whole situation with the over-nerfing, balancing, the multiple bugs, especially with 11.0.5. We've seen a ton of bugs being surfaced up. Some of them were not that prevalent, but now after 11.1.5, multiple bugs, right? So one of the reasons that has happened is because they're actually working on updating a lot of the old engine. And this was posted on the forums. It's not an excuse, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But it's
gonna be an excuse, it's a good one.
Yeah, I'm just feeling if they're finally addressing the spaghetti code that's old as in it's the anniversary. 20-year anniversary, right? They're actually starting to change that. This is what's going to happen. So it's basically a situation of like, okay, guys, we have to go through the storm in order to see the sunshine, because there's going to be a lot of bugs still happening.
I mean, if you think about it, to the extent that we know about game design, when it comes to a live server game, and if you want to change the foundation of it, you're not going to do that without hiccups.
It's a spaghetti code, man. It's so old.
Yeah.
They're finally addressing it. Now, that forum post actually phrased it in the sense that, I'm actually sorry I didn't catch it here, but I'm just kind of paraphrasing it. We're trying to like modernize the old code to get ready for the future updates and the future of World of Warcraft, whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah, that's probably gonna. I mean, we were living it. It's been happening.
Yeah, we saw it like ever since the
Dragonflight.
No. Ever since the 11.1.5, the bugs, the crashes, it was ridiculous.
I mean, they're
Classes,
gearing
dungeons,
towards
raids. There was bugs all across the board, and I can see now why this is happening, because they're actually like ripping out the old code and trying to modernize it, and of course you're gonna have multiple side effects.
But what I mean is they're gearing towards the future 100%, and they have been. So you can probably say that they've been gearing towards the future ever since Dragonflight, when the talents have been revamped, where the profession system has been revamped, more surface level systems that have been ingrained into the game for over a decade, the mob style talent system. So, and they're improving that, and now they keep going one level deeper. When they did the war bands, right, they completely revamped the way the database works with your character, right? Because if you think about it, all of your achievements, your reputations, your transmogs are essentially files in a database that your character has to be able to access, and not all characters can access them because they don't have the permissions. A mage doesn't have access to warrior transmogs, right? But we're seeing those barriers being reduced because they're improving the permissions or restrictions that classes have towards accessing that database, so they keep addressing underlying systems that the WoW is built upon. If you keep going deeper than that, then we end up to, you know, how combat works. Maybe that's how they came up with Plunderstorm, because we meme the Plunderstorm, and you can meme it and hate it for however much you want to, and you're justified to do that. But if you really take a look at it, the combat is 100% different than what we have right now. It's a very modern WoW, modern way of playing WoW, and obviously they don't just do that for the fun of it. They're obviously either testing certain things that they could be working on in terms of, you know, the game engine, or they're trying to see how people are receptive to new stuff, right? People weren't very receptive to that, but
no, they weren't.
But clearly people love mob remix, where the whole gearing system and rating system is turned on its head, and it's like a totally different way of playing WoW. Plunderstorm, totally different way of playing WoW. They keep doing this, so it's clear that they're gearing towards. Now, whether or not we're gonna end up there, because they can always say, oh, it's too much, we're not gonna be able to do it, scrap it, let's go back to the drawing board.